and acting like he's going to replace one of the most monumental threats in the history, not of just X-Men, but of Marvel Comics itself. It just can't happen. He's too much of a Rudy Poo candy ass. It's never going to work. A lot of people are believing that X-Men From the Ashes actually started with X-Men #1 from Jed MacKay. And it makes sense that you would make that assumption. But there was actually another series that came out before that Tom Brevoort greenlit and has been providing oversight on. It's called X-Men Heir of Apocalypse. And Doc and I reviewed the very first issue, and it was kind of embarrassing. It wasn't very good because it was written by Steve Foxe, who's not a very good creator. Definitely one of the worst things introduced to Marvel Comics during the Krakoan era is Steve Foxe himself. But this really is the beginning of Tom Brevoort's vision for what X-Men are going to be. If you remember, it had a really weird cast of characters that were going to be vying to be the new Apocalypse. A few of those characters make sense. Archangel is in the book, but is not a contestant, even though he would make sense. Richter certainly makes sense. You could almost make a play for maybe the Gorgon or Exodus. But Emma Frost, Doug Ramsey, Forge, X-23, none of those characters even belonged in the series, but they all wanted to become the new Apocalypse for reasons unknown. And of course, we've already had an Heir of Apocalypse. I believe it was actually Richter himself. And this week, we actually got the conclusion of this. I'd actually stopped reading the series because it was so bad. But I didn't realize just how embarrassing Steve Foxe was going to be in this one with his reveal of the new Apocalypse with an all-new name and character design. You wouldn't even know who it was if you see the character design and name. You wouldn't be able to guess it. When you do something stupid, it should absolutely be ridiculed and put out there for people to see and have a good laugh at. So that's what we're going to do here. And we're going to be talking about this from the perspective of Screen Rant's article that apparently thinks this is a good idea. Those dudes would literally carry water for anything. For millennia, the powerful X-Men villain Apocalypse stood as a symbol of mutant power and might until the Krakoan age of mutant kind offered a different path forward for the epic in Sabanur. After the fall of Krakoa, Apocalypse finally realized that his philosophy was no longer working for the future of mutants, prompting him to begin a search for an heir. Finally, in X-Men Heir of Apocalypse #4, En Sabanur has chosen a surprising successor, the beloved X-Men hero, Douglas Ramsey. That's right. The guy with no real powers other than reading and deciphering languages. Cipher is now the Heir of Apocalypse. And you look at the list and all the people that would be the lamest, like Emma Frost would have been terrible. Nature Girl would have been an awful choice. But then you think Cipher was never in consideration. They would never do anything quite that stupid. And he fucking did it because he's Steve Foxe. And you're like, yes, I hate your writing, but I love that you exist because you're just a reminder that Marvel Comics and the X-Men office do not value talent. They do not value creativity. They just value the fact that, I don't know, maybe he's got friends in the industry and he checks a couple of boxes because he is gay. And then you just get to write stupid ass stories, literally retreads of different things on different levels. As I said, there's already been an Heir of Apocalypse. We've already gotten that story in much better fashion, I might add. In fact, we've already had tournaments to decide who was going to be the heir of whatever. Remember the Phoenix tournament? It ended up being Echo as the new Phoenix. Who cared about that? What impact has Echo as the Phoenix ever made? They actually just moved the Phoenix back onto Jean Grey and never even explained how it happened. That's how lame it was. And that's how lame this is, but worse. Echo was a better choice as Phoenix than Cipher is as the next Apocalypse. Like, can you please take these concepts and characters seriously? That the dude that was literally just like fucking translating for the island for 3 or 4 years straight. Like, we realize he's not going to be the big bad for the X-Men, but apparently that's what they're doing. And you could just sit back and go, whoo, did not see that one coming. I knew it was going to be dumb, but I didn't think Tom Brevoort and Steve Foxe could actually outdo themselves with something this stupid. And in my opinion, Tom Brevoort and Steve Foxe owe Marvel money. They should give them money for producing something this stupid that has devalued a concept and character as cool as Apocalypse that has been so impactful. You know, they already watered him down during Krakoa. They basically gelded him, removed his balls in the very final issues of the Fall of X. And then this is somehow so much worse. Apocalypse choosing Cipher as his heir may come as a major surprise to many X-Men fans who are used to seeing Doug Ramsey as a mutant hero with little offensive power or desire to lead. Cipher's role in the Krakoan era was incredibly important, acting as the voice of Krakoa for the Quiet Council, but he has never been seen as a fighter. However, after Apocalypse attacked the X-Men in an attempt to keep Krakoa on Earth, and not in the White Hot Room, Sabanur finally realized that his violent ideology was no longer suitable for mutant evolution. That's like fundamental characteristics of what makes Apocalypse Apocalypse and what makes his mission, and his point of view and perspective, and why he's such a dangerous threat to mutants and superheroes and basically everybody in the Marvel 616. That's why the character is over. You've just removed everything cool about the character to replace him with a lame golden version of the character. And I remember, Jonathan Hickman clearly loved Doug Ramsey's Cipher. He thought that skill set was very cool and could be wielded in different ways. He tried to make Doug a big deal, obviously one of the focal points of his X-Men run. And then we got to Ten of Swords, and Doug was going to play a big part of that, and he had to learn how to fight with the sword. It never really worked out. He got basically whored off to that Bay, the Blood Moon lady, or whatever her name is. Literally went nowhere. Did you even remember that stuff until this issue? If you read it, I didn't remember it. And then he didn't even really become one of the major heroes of Ten of Swords. You're like, why did we do all this setup to make it seem like Doug was going to do something that it seemed like he was incapable of, just to bring in Bay to fight his battles for him and stuff? And nobody else has attempted to do anything cool with the character. And this is not doing something cool with Cipher, Doug Ramsey. This is embarrassing. It's more embarrassing than the White Hot Room. And you know how I feel about that concept. And just the name itself being as fucking dumb as humanly possible. And somehow, Doug Ramsey as Revelation is even dumber than humanly possible. Like, I do not know how you arrive to a creative decision like this. But there are people out there that are going to hold water for it and act like it was a good idea, even though everybody, including the staunchest, like Krakoan supporters, know this is a DOA idea. In this way, Cipher is perhaps the perfect choice for a successor, since his skills, beliefs, and ideology are vastly different from Apocalypse. Revelation, after being reborn with an entirely new design, reminiscent of Apocalypse's own, tells Sabanur that he will not lead mutants with force and might, a major shift from Apocalypse's rule. However, just like Apocalypse's horseman, Revelation already has two powerful disciples, Bay the Blood Moon and Warlock. Bay, Doug's powerful Iraqi wife, and Warlock, Cipher's best friend and soulmate, are the perfect disciples for Revelation, who will stand by him and hopefully offer heroic perspectives. I hope they don't, because Apocalypse is supposed to be a villain. He's supposed to be the bad guy. These are supposed to be his horsemen that are riding in to like signal the end of all things. That's what they're supposed to represent. Not a new, peaceful, more pacifist perspective of Apocalypse, realizing that evolution and mutants being, the final form of human evolution, all that kind of stuff. That's all off the board, because the power of friendship and love, that was basically how it was presented in the final issue of Fall of X. Uncanny X-Men 700, X-Men 35, whatever they want to call it. And it was embarrassing then, and now it's even more embarrassing. Apocalypse is just like a little bitch. He doesn't even believe in his mission anymore. He's no longer a threat. He's just going to sit on Mars and skip rocks while Doug Ramsey sits on Earth, stealing his look, but making it gold, and trouncing on all of his legacy and reputation and the lore of Apocalypse, which is so awesome, introduced in X Factor. One of the really big ideas that Wheezy introduced into X-Men that really stood the test of time. And then you get fucking Age of Apocalypse, one of the coolest events in the history of comic books. You show up one day, all your titles are gone. It says Age of Apocalypse. It's got a new fucking trade dress on it and everything. and you don't even know what's happening or if it'll ever go back to the way it was, and Apocalypse is the big bad guy and just fucking great. Let's not talk about the movie because that wasn't very good, but Apocalypse is just badass. And this is so not badass, but it is. I do think it is an honest interpretation of Apocalypse by Steve Foxe. And that's why the X-Men are failing, because they don't get people that like the X-Men. They don't like the lore. They don't like the characters. And they just don't get the concepts. They don't understand why Apocalypse is an amazing villain. They don't understand why Wolverine is an amazing hero. They don't understand why people like these characters. They don't understand any of this stuff. And they are just throwing handfuls of feces at the wall and hoping a nugget of corn sticks. And they can call that the big hit. That was my decision. That's Tom Brevoort's going to own this one. Of course, this will not be the nugget of corn that sticks to the wall. This will be part of the other refuse that drips down and destroys the X-Men line piece by piece, bit by bit, year by year, as they make more and more just incredibly stupid decisions like this one. But as far as all the decisions that have been made in the X-Men line over the past, I don't know, decade, it's got to be like a decade now of just really bad X-Men, I do truly believe in my heart of hearts, this is the dumbest one. Is it the worst decision? No, because it's Doug fucking Ramsey and who cares? It's a terrible decision because it is, basically removing the testicles of Apocalypse and taking them off the board. But anybody with half a sense will be able to come in and undo this in half a second. Tim Seeley could do that, and he's not very good. So it's not the worst, most destructive decision in that respect. It doesn't destroy nearly as much as other ideas. But this is incredibly stupid and will get nobody excited or talking about X-Men. And I hope Tom Brevoort owns this one and talks about it in the future on why he greenlit such a losing idea. The final panel of X-Men Heir of Apocalypse reveals that Revelation will return. Doug's fierce look in the final scene portrays the formerly peaceful and kind mutant hero as a villain, potentially the X-Men's next major bad. Unrecognizable as the transformed Revelation, hopefully, Apocalypse's celestial tampering has not altered Doug's natural heroism. Regardless, it is clear that Revelation is committed to evolving Apocalypse's legacy, taking Ensaba Noor's mission for mutant growth and evolution in a different, potentially a villainous direction. Doug Ramsey does not have a villainous bone in his body. You could put devil horns on Doug Ramsey, throw a tail on his ass, give him a pitchfork, make him all red, call him Satan, and I would still say that he's not a threat to anybody. You can't take the character seriously because it's still fucking Cipher. He's still a little bitch. He's always going to be a bitch. If he speaks a language that everyone can understand, he speaks bitch, because that's who Doug Ramsey is. And there's nothing wrong with it. Not every character needs to be fucking Wolverine. But you have to understand the limitations of a character like Doug Ramsey and acting like he's going to replace one of the most monumental threats in the history, not of just X-Men, but of Marvel Comics itself. It just can't happen. He's too much of a Rudy Poo candy ass. It's never going to work. And I do find that Revelation will return a tagline on the end of this, a threat to all fans out there that they're going to continue on with this stupid idea, probably written by Steve Foxe, who shouldn't be writing at Marvel and should have been moved out of the X-Men office after all of his failures. Or we'll admit this because I don't want to be a complete asshole here. His X-Men 97 companion comic book to the cartoon that's on Disney Plus, perfectly average. I don't watch the cartoon. I read 2 issues. There's nothing to hate about it. If you like the cartoon, you might like the comic book more. I don't watch the cartoon because my kids didn't find any interest in it. I put it on. They told me to turn it off. Other than that, this dude has done nothing but garbage. He's the one that created the gay seamstress Spider-Man. That's his original idea. And this is his next big fucking winner in Marvel Comics. And I apologize for the language. I'm trying to be a nicer person. But when you see these kind of stupid ideas continuously happen over and over and over again, and you see these morons, these terrible creatives that continuously get to ruin stuff and have no concept on how to do anything people would like, get chance after chance after chance after chance with no rhyme or reason or ever a hint of success on anything, it does get a little bit frustrating. And I imagine some of you are frustrated with me. I hope you had a good laugh with me too, because you couldn't help but just laugh at the revelation being Doug Ramsey, and he's the heir to Apocalypse. Oh man, there's stupid ideas, and then there's this. Is there a fucking word for this? If there's a word that means beyond stupid and you've got it, is it ludicrous? Is this a ludicrous idea? Perhaps it's even dumber than that. I want to hear from you guys in the comments section. If you would like more conversations about comic books and you appreciate what we're doing here on Think Critical YouTube, providing a few laughs, a sense of balance and honesty to the comic book industry itself, and you want to support us, go over to Think Critical Patreon, and we have awesome podcasts with just the right sense of irreverent humor while also paying tribute to the good stuff out there. If you haven't seen it, there's a link in the video description. I hope to see you on the Patreon very, very soon.